Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Grow Strong Leaders. My podcast gives me the opportunity to have conversations with leaders who are committed to their own development and also committed to helping others recognize and realize their potential. And that's why I'm delighted to have Emily Harper as my guest today, someone who shares my deep belief in growing strong leaders who create teams and organizations where people thrive. Welcome to my show, Emily.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I am so honored to be here, and I cannot wait to have this conversation with you today.
I know it's going to be great. And I want to thank our colleague, Maggie Pound, who is the one that introduced me to you and helped me learn more about your company and the great work that Villyge is doing. So before we dive into our conversation, let me introduce you in a bit more formal way to my audience. Emily is the Chief Operating Officer at Villyge, and that's spelled Villyge. It's a people-first platform that upskills managers in the power of empathic leadership. Emily joined Villyge to redefine the corporate landscape, and she firmly believes that organizations thrive when their employees feel valued, inspired, and empowered to bring their unique perspectives to the table. You see why we're so aligned. Exactly what I love to do too. Emily is on a mission to increase belonging, dismantle career barriers, and elevate opportunities using the power of technology. Emily is a certified public accountant, and in 2012, she founded a software as a service company in the accounting space. And then in 2018, she created a woman-focused coaching business. And most importantly to Emily, she's a proud mom to her 4-year-old, and she is truly dedicated to shaping the future of work for the next generation to come. So Emily, that's such an interesting background as a CPA and then getting into the work you're doing. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Yeah, it's a little bit of a winding road, which I think most of us have been on. But yeah, my background, my educational background is absolutely in tax and accounting and actually psychology as well. So I have always been interested in sort of how people work and what makes them tick and all of those sorts of things. But I started in tax and accounting, and within my career realized that the way that we were doing things at the firm that I was in actually California, we could be doing it better. So I left and started a tech company in that space, which was successful and continues to be successful. And with that experience, I really wanted to sort of do something that was a little bit more meaningful to me, and sort of use that psychology background of what makes people work well together, how do people communicate, just go a little bit deeper. And so with the experience that I had building that tech platform, I came across Villyge and just automatically hit it off with our founder and CEO, Debbie Yadagari, and her mission just totally spoke to me. And so it just was sort of the perfect blend, perfect timing for both of us to come together and then work on this tech platform, which is Villyge, to help really people in the workplace to show up as more human, to feel like they belong, to feel like they can be themselves, and to really just create a better workplace for all of us.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk a little bit about your mission, because I think that ties into this whole purpose that you that I mentioned in your intro around upscaling and the skills of managers in this area of empathic leadership.
Absolutely. So our mission as a whole is to make managers be more human-centric, empathic leaders, to really use the power of empathy in the workplace to then empower employees as a whole to be more productive and innovative and engaged and create these cultures of care that really speak to everyone in the workplace. So what Villyge is doing, and what our belief is that it starts from the top down, right? What we know is that employees want to feel seen, valued, and heard. And how do we do that? It starts with their managers. There's a stat out there um, that says that managers are in line with the importance that they have in employees' lives with their therapists and with their spouses, because we spend so much time with our managers. And so it all starts and ends with the manager. So in order to really give employees the support that they want, the cultures that they're looking for, especially in today's workplace, we have to start with the managers, and we have to make it easy for the managers to really show up for their employees in meaningful ways while continuing to drive team goals forward. Managers have a lot on their plates these days. They
Mhm.
always have. And so how can we use technology to make it really a really easy lift for managers to show up as a human for their team members, which is what today's employees expect. So we're really on a mission um, to change the corporate landscape and make everyone feel like they're excited to go to work, they're excited to work with their manager, that they belong, that they bring value to the organizations that they work with. And we're doing that by starting with the power of empathy and empathic leadership, and really upskilling managers in that arena.
Mhm. I just love that. So, talk a little bit about what you all mean by empathy and empathic leadership, just so we have a common understanding with our
Yes.
listeners as we go deeper into the topic.
Yes, absolutely. So empathy, there's a few different ways you can define it. There's cognitive empathy, behavioral empathy, but empathy in a whole as a whole is standing in the shoes of another human being, right? And a lot of us, have not experienced everything that there is to experience in life, whether it be getting married, adopting, expecting a child, divorce, menopause, experiencing burnout. There's all sorts of life events, is what we like to call them at Villyge, that none of us, have experienced all of them. So how do we stand in the shoes of someone else when we don't really know what that life event entails, right? And so how do we scale the power of empathy and empathic leadership in an easy and effective and productive way to help managers really show up for their employees in ways that matter? And so, what we're doing at Villyge is giving managers the real time education and information that they need about these specific life events that their employees are experiencing, to be able to help them stand in those shoes. And
Mm.
so with technology, our platform is able to nudge managers on a real time, just in time basis with the information that they need if they know that their employee is adopting a child, or they know that their employee is empty nesting, or they know that their employee is experiencing a loss, then we give them that information they need to really show up as an empathic leader. So to
Mm.
me, empathy is really trying to understand what someone is experiencing, putting yourself in those shoes, and then responding based on that.
Mhm. So let's look at what are some examples to make it more concrete of empathic leadership. A manager who is exhibiting that, what is it they're saying or doing that
Yeah.
would communicate to an employee that connection is happening?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Meredith. And you know what? It's so simple. It's so simple. And employees just want to know that their managers care. So it could be something as simple as shooting an email over saying, "Hey, I know that 2 months from now, you're going to be delivering your baby. And I just want to let you know that I support you. And, the team and I have you covered while you're out. Or, a simple go knock on their door. Villyge is not here to replace human connection. We're here to build human connection. So we still want managers to pick up the phone or Zoom or go knock on the door and say, hey, because of Villyge, I know that this is going on in your life. And I just want you to know that my door is open and I'm here to support you. And I know that you might need to be out. I know that there might be an emotional toll. I know, depending on the life event, I know X, Y, and Z because Villyge has told me. And I just want you to know that I care as your leader and we're going to make sure you're supported. And it's just that simple. So really in an interaction between a manager and employee is an email, a text, a phone call, a knock on the door. But the important thing is that it's ongoing, right? So that's where Villyge comes in with the ongoing nudges and the real time nudges, because if a manager just says at one time, oh, congrats, you're getting married, and then they never mention it again, that's not so helpful, right? Employees want to truly feel seen, and these things are ongoing in their lives. Someone's experiencing a loss. That's not a one-time thing of saying, I'm sorry for your loss. That's an ongoing thing of checking in 3 months later, 6 months later, 5 years later, saying, hey, I know the date of your loss is coming up, and I just want you to know I'm here, and maybe you should take the day off, or whatever it may be. Very simple gestures, but that just makes the world of difference for an employee that's navigating something.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I think it's important to point out that the kinds of nudges and information that Villyge shares with the managers are events that the employee has already entered into the Villyge database. So it's not as though an employee's confidences are being violated. It's in conjunction with them reporting that this is coming up and is something that matters to them. It is a significant event.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're not here to, out anyone with what's going on in their lives, right? We're here to really give employees an easy way to open those lines of communication, because a lot of the things we're talking about might be uncomfortable to talk about, experiencing a loss. You might not want to talk about that. Entering menopause, going through a divorce. A lot of these things, you might not want to knock on your manager's door and say, hey, FYI, this is happening. But the reality of it is these things are absolutely affecting how you show up at work. And the last thing you want is your manager thinking, that you've just checked out, or maybe you're looking for a different role at a different company, or, you still want to be valued as an employee. But in order to do so, your manager has to be looped in, right? And so we are just giving employees an easy way to do that, which is not required by any means. So if an employee does not want to share, that is absolutely fine. And on the flip side, sometimes employees are sharing these things outside of the Villyge platform, and we understand that, and we love that. If an employee is going to knock on their manager's door and say, hey, I'm navigating a divorce, I love that they're having that conversation. And I hope that all employees and managers have the psychological safety to have those conversations. And if that's the case, then Villyge still offers on-demand guidance that the manager can access to find that same education and the resources that they would receive in those nudges. So if the employee had shared in the platform that they were experiencing a divorce, the pro to that is the employee gets personalized resources from the platform as well. But the other pro is the manager gets nudged, so they get reminded on an ongoing basis, which is helpful. But we understand that managers need access to this information regardless of whether their employees shared in the Villyge platform. So they have access on demand all the time to all of that education and guidance to help them show up as an empathic leader.
I just think that's so valuable. And I'm curious, do you get any resistance? And if you do, I'm guessing you do, just because this is such a common problem of managers saying, I don't have time to
Yeah.
have one more thing on my plate. How do you respond to that? How do you help
Yes.
them take a different perspective on
Yeah.
this role?
That's a great question. And we do get that. We do get that, like I mentioned earlier, managers have so much on their plate. And, a lot of them view, not a lot, but some managers view it as, I don't need to be my employee's therapist. I don't need to know what's going on in their personal life, come to work, get the job done, and then go home. And to be honest, I think that that mentality is sort of shifting and moving out of organizations, um, just because we all have so much exposure to the importance of culture and,
Mm,
for the long-term success of organizations. But there are those leaders out there, and you're not always going to change that manager's mind if they don't want to show up as an empathic leader and they don't want to um, upskill as a leader, sort of on the human side, soft skill side of things. But what we are doing with those managers is constantly educating them on the power of empathy, on why this is important, why this does make a difference, and really showing them results, right? When empathic leaders lead in this way by just shooting a simple email over saying, hey, I know you're going through this and I support you, which takes, 5 seconds maybe with technology, showing them the results of just those simple actions and just really providing education to those managers that maybe give a little bit of pushback of, we get it. You have so much going on. Understandable. You have to hit KPIs. You have to make sure everyone's progressing in their career. You have to do so many things. Um, and then we're telling you to then also have personal conversations and make sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's exactly why we're using technology and these nudges and showing up where managers work. So showing up in their inboxes. Eventually we'll be showing up in Slack. We'll be showing up in Teams. We'll be showing up in text messages if they choose
mm,
to be communicated with in that way. Because we're trying to use technology to make this as simple as possible for
mhm.
managers, and especially those managers that give a little bit of pushback. But in some, I think it's all about education, and it's all about just really showing them why this is important and how being just a little bit more empathic, you don't have to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, but just a little bit more empathic will really change your team and change your organization.
So when you think of upskilling, what
Mhm.
do you see as some of the primary gaps between where managers are and what they need to develop in order to become a more empathic leader? What are they missing?
Yeah, well, a lot of the tools that are out there are that are in sort of the L&D space of upskilling managers. A lot of those tools are focused on performance-based items, right? How to lead a team, how to have those difficult conversations, how to hit the KPIs, how to do all those things. So we have a ton of amazing resources and tools and technology that's out there to upskill managers, um, technically and in an overall way. I think what's missing is this human centric side of things, and how do you upskill managers to be a little bit more human in the workplace, um, with what's out there today. And there are resources out there surrounding empathic leadership and upskilling managers in empathy, but those stand in the form of workshops or webinars, sort of one-off
Mm,
things, that managers can attend, a couple times a year. And a lot of times that goes in one ear out the other. And so I think, the gaps that we're trying to fill, and that goes back to what I was just talking about, is showing up for managers where they are at work. So showing up in their Slack channel, showing up in their team, showing up where it's very simple for them to just take that bite-sized piece of information and digest it when it means something, right? Like they're in the middle of their workday. They could easily send a message over to, Emily, their employee, because they just got reminded in Slack. And so they can easily navigate over there and upskill. But I think overall, what's missing is really upskilling managers in the moment that they need it. And so that's when it's going to stick. And then on an ongoing basis, it's not just a one and done type of deal, right? It's always changing. The world is always changing. That's one thing that Villyge does too, is helps managers respond to real world things that are happening. So, unfortunately, when there's mass shootings or, things that tend to be happening more and more that affect teams, affect employees, affect, working parents, how they're showing up, managers need help in those aspects and scenarios as well. And so we show up for them in that area too.
I so agree with you about the one-offs not having lasting effect, because that's one of the things, we have been devoted to over many years, is this idea of the follow through, the practice, the reinforcement being so critical, because what you're having to do is rewire someone's brain. It's already hardwired for certain ways of doing things.
Right.
You don't just override that circuitry. It's a physical wiring that takes place. I love the fact that what you all do is provide, in the form of these nudges, the reminders that help the person learn to practice that skill.
Yeah. And it's all about repetition.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's so cool, because I have to think, and I know you've got stories, so I want you to share some of them, of managers who have raised that level of awareness, that have started noticing more, that are having more of these kinds of conversations. What do you see happening both with them as individual leaders, but also the people on their teams who are impacted by this change in behavior?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think to start with those that are acting, the managers that are acting upon these nudges, and they are showing up for their employees in these simple ways. I think what they're realizing is that it's a real simple thing. It maybe when they hear, the power of empathic leadership or upskilling in empathy, it's sort of like, okay, what, what does that mean? I don't really know whatever you say, and when once they realize that it comes down to such basics, it's just about human connection, really. And, it's so simple to show up as an empathic leader. I think that it excites them. I think, what we're hearing from some of our organizations, the managers within those organizations, is that Villyge makes it so simple for them to show up for their employees. And then they're so very clearly seeing the rewards of that. Their relationships with their employees are improving. Their communication is improving with their employees. And, that's what we're trying to do, is really improve these relationships to then improve the overall culture that everyone is in. The managers are part of that culture too. It's not just about employees expect, cultures of care these days. Managers are a part of that culture. And when they want to work somewhere where it feels good also, right? And so we're really seeing that with the managers. In fact, we have been surveying the organizations that we work with, and we just started analyzing some of the survey results this past week, and 89% of managers that receive nudges and prompts from Villyge are reacting to those nudges, meaning they are, if we say, hey, Emily shared a life event that she's expecting a baby, here's an email to reach out to her. They're doing that. They're at 89% of them are acting upon what we're suggesting that they do. And so that speaks volumes to me, because if they could get nudges all day long. And if they're not reacting to those nudges,
Mm-hmm.
then we're not solving the problem, right? And so the fact that so many of them are reacting and responding and taking action, I think just completely solidifies the fact that these managers see the value in it. They see the value in that little email, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. And then on the employee side of things, again, it's such a simple act to make employees feel seen and valued. And when they feel that way, they want to be more engaged. They want to be more innovative. They get excited about, being part of the team and being part of the organization, and coming up with new ideas, and they want to stick around. And some of the results that we're seeing on that side is that when employees share life events through Villyge, they are retained 12 months later. And so, we can't say that employees are only retained because they had access to Villyge, but what we're seeing through these surveys and the data that we're gathering is that they absolutely feel more cared for. In fact, some of the data, I think it was 33% of employees feel more productive and engaged at work because of Villyge. And that's simply not because we're telling them how to produce. So that's not what Villyge does. It's simply because we're giving the managers the tools that they need to make these employees feel supported. So we're really seeing amazing results.
Mm-hmm. That's so exciting. And the thing to me that's such a strength of what you all are doing is you have, you're providing resources for both the employees and the managers. And the companies are investing in these resources. And so an employee, once they get into and are able to use the resources, including conferring with experts,
Yeah.
um, those areas, that to me, there would be this either conscious or subconscious feeling of they're investing in my well-being.
Yes.
And I think that that's such an important message. And like you say, the managers too, when they feel like they're being, because I would guess that the managers are in both roles, right? They have their leader who
Yes.
might be using the resource to get nudged about that manager,
Yeah.
in addition to the manager then doing it with their employee. Is that right?
Yes.
It works both directions.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Meredith, that one of the stats that have come from the data that I just thought was so interesting was that 55% of life events that are being shared through Villyge are being shared by middle managers. And so these are managers that also have managers. And so what that tells me is, a few different things. First, managers are looking for support too, right? It's not just the employees that need to be sharing life events. Managers are going through life events and they're managing teams. And how do you do it all, And so it just proves that managers need support too. Also, it shows me that managers themselves see the value that Villyge delivers. They wouldn't be using it if they didn't believe in, what Villyge delivered. And then third, they know that their own manager above them is going to benefit from receiving those nudges and that guidance. And so it's just a little bit more validation for all of us that, over half of these life events are being shared by middle managers, that, everyone needs support, and we have to, give everyone the resources and the support they need so that everyone on the team can thrive.
Mhm. That's such a curious number. And I was just sitting here thinking, I wonder if it's partly because they've been behind the curtain and they know the nudges that come in. So they know what's happening
Maybe.
with their own manager.
Yeah.
And I just think having the full picture of understanding that process and how it works on both sides might be, and experiencing it from both sides
Yes.
might be an extra motivator for them to continue doing both things, asking for
Absolutely.
and getting help, and then wanting to help their employees because they see how they have personally benefited
Right.
from utilizing the process.
Right. Yes. And, just thinking about it now in real time, I'm thinking, because my hands are always in the data. So I have, it's always in my head. And I can think of a few that I've noticed that have managers that have received nudges that I know are ones that have shared with their manager. So it'd be interesting to really dig into that and see maybe what percentage of managers have also received nudges themselves, and sort of get their feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I think that's really the key.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really like about what you're doing, because you're attempting anyway to reach all different levels
Yes.
in the organization. And that's really, to me, such a critical piece of totally impacting an organization's culture.
Right.
It just doesn't work starting at the bottom and trying to shove things.
Right. Right.
That the higher you can go where you get the buy-in and utilization, the more effective it is with everyone because they see other people are implementing this.
Right.
And I just think that makes a difference too. And I know you do workshops as well when you're just onboarding a new client. There are things that you do to lay the groundwork. And I want you to talk about those because I think this is applicable to anyone that's wanting to introduce a new program.
Yes.
Type. What is it that needs to happen up front to at least increase the chances that it will be successful?
Right.
Because if you don't, then it's likely to not have acceptance. It's not going to be implemented. So what are some of the things you all have done that have caused people to really buy into this?
Yeah, I could talk about onboarding all day long. I love onboarding, and yeah, it's sort of a science, I think. But you can kind of, drill down to the basics of, I think it's all about education, right? It's all about not just how does this product work? How does this tool work? But why am I using this? Why do I need to use this? How is this going to better my life? How is this going to help me to improve as a leader or whatever the tool's objective is, right?
Mhm.
So it's all about educating the audience on what their problem is, because they might not even know it's a problem that they have, right? And so this comes up a lot in empathic leadership. I think, it's a buzzword lately. A lot of people are talking about empathy as a leadership skill, and the power that it has, but that's just been of late. And so a lot of people still don't really know what that means when you say, I'm scaling empathy across organizations. What does that mean? So, and do I care? Why do I care about that? So it's really educating your audience on the problem that they might not even know is a problem until you tell them. And then you say, great, now that you know it, XYZ is a problem and that you could benefit from something. And here's the tool that's going to help you to do that. And so then they want to utilize it versus, here's just another benefit. Here's another tool, add it to the shelf of all the tools we give you as an employer. Hopefully one day you use it, that doesn't work. And that's why a lot of tools out there benefit specifically, their average utilization is 3 to 5%, because there's just so many, and there's just a lot of them are check the box, and employees haven't bought off on, I need to use that tool because I have a problem. And with Villyge, our average utilization right now is 33%, which is really, really high. And that goes back to onboarding. And with anybody who wants to onboard a new client, um, it's all about getting the buy-in from the audience that they have this problem and that your tool will solve the problem. You can teach them how to use the tool any day of the week. Most things, Meredith, I've seen your tool and it's so intuitive, and it's like most people can use it to get a tool, use it, or figure out through the help section, if they have a couple questions, how to use it these days. Technology is very intuitive and advanced. So you can train them on the tool later on, but it's all about talking about what the problem is, why they should care, what the results will be if they solve that problem. And then here's the tool to do it. So what we do at Villyge is we do a lot of webinars during the onboarding process before we've even launched the platform at the organization. The very first thing that we do is called an empathic leadership workshop. And that is for the leaders specifically of an organization. And it's not about Villyge, it's all about using the power of empathy in leadership. Why should they care? What does the research say? Not just what we're telling them, but what does the research say out there? 49% of employees have walked away from jobs because their manager didn't show up for them personally. Half of employees at some point in their career have walked away. 44% of managers say that handling employees' personal matters or life events is the most challenging part of their role. So we have half of employees walking away, and then we have almost half of managers saying, well, I don't know how to respond to their personal events, And so just educating managers on this is a problem. This is a problem, whether or not you've seen it directly on your team. It will impact you at some point. This is what the research says about it. This is why you should care. And when you do care, these are the results you're going to see, and they're going to be great results. So long-winded answer, but I think for any company trying to onboard a new audience and really get their tool or their platform or whatever it is, their idea in front of them, it's really about meeting them where they are, educating them about what's going on, and then, then they'll be excited to use that tool.
That's great. I love that. I think that's an excellent approach, and it explains why you have the level of utilization that you do.
Right.
And and I think your survey numbers will just continue to increase as word spreads within an organization about the benefits of a specific tool and how it benefited people. So this has just been a great conversation, Emily. Thank you. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to have you with your passion and expertise in this whole area, and having my audience be able to learn more about this tool. So why don't you share, how can people connect with you and learn more about what Villyge is doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyone can go to villyge.com. Meredith mentioned this in the beginning, but it's Villyge. So villyge.com, you can find a lot of information there. We're always on LinkedIn. So Villyge on LinkedIn. You can find me, Emily Harper. I think if you type in Emily-M as in mom Harper, that's my URL on LinkedIn, and then Villyge is on there. And then any other social media, you can find us as well: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Villyge. So we would love to connect. And if you would like to learn more, you can email me directly, Emily, EMILY, at Villyge, VILLYGE.com, or success@villyge.com. And we would love to continue the conversation.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. And I just acknowledge you for your continued growth. I'm so glad you decided that going beyond the numbers and PA work to have an impact on the lives of human beings, which I guess you could do indirectly with that. But this, you're finding more fulfilling and more satisfying. And I'm so glad you're involved in this work. So thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I know our missions align so well, and I so appreciate you having me on your podcast. And I'm excited to see what we both continue to do in the future.
Me too. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out our 2 books, Connect with Your Team and Peer Coaching Made Simple. While you're there, download the free facilitator guide to find out how to implement our unique peer coaching system. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.